Guys, please stop posting memes in general chat, or I'll have to ban you.
Reach charge arms!
Anyways, back to what I was saying. Yes, I do believe the age of consent should be 13.
FBI, open up!
Bad boys, what you gonna do? What you gonna do when they come for you? Bad boys, what you gonna do? What you gonna do when they come for you? When you were 8 and you had that trade, you go to school and learn the golden rule. So why are you acting like a bloody fool? If you get hot, then you must get cool. Bad boys, what you gonna do? What you gonna do when they come for you? Bad boys, what you gonna do? What you gonna do when they come for you?
Hello everyone. Welcome to episode 7 of Contestant Loadouts, the series where I give you fun loadouts to try in the finals. Keep in mind, these loadouts aren't designed to be meta so much as they are to be fun. So save your comments on how this is the worst loadout I've ever seen, because I really don't care. Today's loadout brings a little bit of Rainbow Six Siege to the finals. It's not based on any specific character. Rainbow Six is just the first thing I thought of when I thought of the word SWAT. But yes, this loadout is designed to make you feel like a SWAT officer in the finals. However, we won't necessarily be playing like one. More on that later. But if we're not playing exactly like a SWAT officer, how will we be playing? Better yet, what does the loadout consist of to begin with? And how can we make ourselves look like a SWAT officer? Well, let's get to the contestant creator to find out. Like I said earlier, the Rainbow Six Siege comparison is really just a general comparison. That's because this loadout isn't based on any specific SWAT unit or characters in real life or otherwise. It's just a loadout based on weapons and gadgets you would typically see on a SWAT team. The first gadget, or specialization technically, is the grapple hook. Rappelling up and down buildings is a pretty common tactic used by SWAT teams for a myriad of reasons, so a grapple hook is pretty fitting here. Next up, our weapon is the MP5 or XP54 as it's called in game. It's a commonly used weapon on SWAT teams in Western countries, especially in close quarters fights, which we'll be doing a decent amount of. For the gadgets, SWAT teams are fairly basic. This may come as a shock, but SWAT teams typically don't have invisibility bombs or teleportation gateways. What they do have is gadgets like flashbangs, which, fun fact, don't actually blind you for 5 seconds in real life. They really just make loud noises and a very fast flash of light to distract criminals before an entry. I'm sure you're heartbroken. Anyways, the flashbang is our first throwable gadget. The second one is smoke grenades, which SWAT teams use to cover their advance or their retreat. And since subtlety and stealth have essentially been thrown out the window at this point, we'll be capping off the loadout with breaching charges, which are commonly used to reliably open up a point of entry by SWAT teams. Now when it comes to dressing up our contestant to look like a SWAT member, we actually have a lot of free reign here. SWAT teams have a pretty diverse range of uniforms they could use. If you were to look up SWAT teams, you would see blacked out SWAT teams, which is what most people would typically think of. Or maybe you'll see some camo pattern uniforms, or maybe even some SWAT teams who are basically just wearing normal civilian clothes with a bulletproof vest on. So needless to say, you're fairly spoiled for choice when it comes to dressing up. But I'm a pretty basic guy, so I went with the blacked out style of look. To do this, I opted for the VIA comms helmet for the headwear, the no-tell specs for the glasses, the VIA firewall vest, the black multi-gloves, the VIA combat cargos, and the black combat boots. I even got the virtual extension MP5 skin, as it makes the MP5 look more like its real life counterpart than the default skin does. Like I said though, SWAT teams can be fairly diverse with their getup, so even if you don't have all this stuff, you can probably make a SWAT outfit without spending any of your multi-bucks. And with that, we're all geared up and ready to stop some bad guys. So, how do we play as SWAT in the finals? I'll tell you what, getting kicked out of the army was probably the greatest thing that ever happened to me. It turns out the admin team at my last command accidentally wrote me down as an honorable discharge, so I didn't even bother replying to the ATF because the FBI was hitting me up as soon as I posted my resume on LinkedIn. And let me tell you, this has easily been my... Yeah, hello? Oh, really? Excessive force? How? The guy was a pet... Okay. Yes, I understand. Okay, bye. It appears I've been placed on administrative leave without pay. They also mentioned something about a possible arrest in my near future, so let's get into this SWAT training before the boys in blue start kicking in my door. The primary goal here is to clear enemies out of buildings, which isn't always something you'll have an opportunity to do, but we'll get into the other tactics shortly. If you have a team camping inside of a building, use smoke to cover your approach so you don't get whacked on the way there. Once you get to the building the enemies are camping inside of, start clearing the building from the top down with your grappling hook. Use your breaching charges to break the floor and take out any enemies you see. If you don't see anyone, use your flashbangs to see if there's anyone inside the room, then keep room clearing from top to bottom. Now, if you need to take an objective quickly, skip the breach charge portion of this strategy and just use your flashes and MP5 to clear out the enemies. But make sure to avoid booby traps or flashing your own teammates. Now, when it comes to defending your own objective, place a breach charge underneath it if possible so you can bring down the objective if it starts getting taken. And use your flashes and smokes to blind enemies and cut off their lines of sight as they approach you. You can also grapple to the top of whatever building you're at since the MP5 is pretty accurate at mid-range, but I would advise against being out in the open for too long as a light player. Now, you won't always be playing in or around buildings in this game since not every objective will spawn in or around a building, so for instances where you have to be out in the open, smart use of your gadgets is essential. Use your grapples to hunt down the other rooftop campers and claim the rooftops for yourself. Then use your smokes and flashes to once again blind your opponents and cut off their lines of sight. It's also worth placing some breach charges ahead of time to create an escape route if you start to get overwhelmed. You can also bounce a flashbang from a wall to throw off whoever's chasing you. Now, if you don't feel like camping on a roof, then instead you can run around inside all the buildings, clearing out any enemies that might be inside of them, and using your breaching charges to make a new line of sight to pepper your enemies from, or an opening to rush them from. I would still use flashes to blind enemies before you rush them. Just make it quick cause the flashes in this game last like 2 seconds. I can't tell you how many times I flashed an enemy, then stood there like a dipshit throwing another flashbang when I should have just gone in for the kill. Much like real life SWAT, you'll have to capitalize off of a very short window of opportunity when you use your flashbangs. And finally, let's cap things off with a few miscellaneous tips. First off, the grappling hook, flashbangs, and smoke make you pretty well equipped to take on those bitch-ass camping snipers and power shift. To be honest, even if you don't kill them, keeping them off of your teammates' asses is still pretty helpful. The other 2 tips revolve around smoke grenades. First off, smokes are great for covering revives. Just get your teammate's statue to a relatively safe spot, pop a smoke, and then revive them. Last but not least, I don't know if smoke is server-sided or client-sided or whatever, but sometimes you can still see a decent amount of things while standing inside of it. From time to time, I dropped a smoke on myself, and then I got a couple kills by standing inside of it and shooting at people who couldn't really see me all that well. Doing this made me feel like a very dirty SWAT member, but I'm constantly pitted up against groups of 3 thugs with AK-47s who daisy chain heal each other and instantly revive each other as soon as one of them dies, so I really don't feel too bad about it. It's a tactic that throws people off, and that's really what this whole loadout is about, punishing the criminal scum of the arena through the use of special weapons and tactics. Aside from the MP5, most light players don't really run a loadout like this. Grapple is usually passed up for dashing or invisibility, and I can count the amount of times I've been flashed or smoked out in the past month on one hand. Also, I don't think I've seen a light player running a breach charge since like Season 2. But all of this works in our favor, because most people won't expect to be flashed constantly, or for a light player to be able to break through a wall. However, I don't have enough ADHD to drop 20 kills every game as a light player. I don't know, maybe I should have watched more Subway Surfer, Family Guy clips and Mr. Beast growing up. Actually, scratch the Mr. Beast part. All this is to say that while I had fun, I wasn't exactly amazing with this loadout. But if you're a frequent light player, maybe you'll do better on the SWAT team than I did when I was on it. I say that I was on the SWAT team because I've just received confirmation that the FBI is firing me for causing multiple PR nightmares. But on the bright side, they did a thorough investigation on themselves for all the raids I was a part of, and they found no wrongdoing. So I'm off the hook for any criminal charges, and thus free to join my local police department instead. And they're getting pretty desperate because there's been an unspecified group of people rioting downtown due to an unspecified reason. So it looks like I'll be helping with that. Thank you guys for watching, and stay off the streets if you don't want the heat.